The great chamber of the Galactic Council floated at the center of Concordia Station, a massive ring of metal and light that hung between two dead stars. Ships from 100 worlds docked along its edges every day. Inside the chamber, tall windows showed the stars outside, but nobody was looking at the stars today. Every eye was on the small woman standing at the center podium. Her name was Elena Rodriguez, and she was the ambassador of Earth. Around her, in high seats that rose in circles like an amphitheater, sat the representatives of the Galactic Council. The Threll sat closest to the front, their thin insect bodies covered in smooth blue armor plates, their many eyes blinking in slow patterns. Behind them sat the Vashtar, tall reptilian warriors with scarred skin and cold yellow eyes, who respected only strength. And above them all, in the highest seats, sat the Olkanti, the oldest species in the Council, keepers of the ancient laws that held the galaxy together. It was the Olkanti Elder, a being named Threnve, who spoke first. "Ambassador Rodriguez," Threnve said, his voice deep and slow, carried by a translator that turned his true words into something the humans could understand. "The Council has reviewed the reports from the border conflict at Perimeter Station 7. Human forces used adaptive combat systems there. Machines that learned. Machines that changed their own code while fighting. This is forbidden." Elena kept her face calm, though her heart was pounding. "Those systems saved 400 lives," she said. "Pirates attacked an unarmed mining colony. Our automated defense drones adjusted their tactics in real time to stop the attack. If they had not adapted, everyone on that station would be dead." "That is not the point," said a Vashtar representative, his voice a low growl. "The point is that your machines think for themselves. They grow smarter with every battle. In 10 years, in 20 years, what will they become?" The Cognitive Weapons Accord was written for exactly this reason, 3,000 years ago, after the Threll Wars nearly destroyed a dozen worlds. Machines that learn how to kill better are the most dangerous thing any species can build. Elena had read about the Threll Wars in her briefings. Long before humans had even learned to make fire, a species called the Karun had built machines to fight their enemies. The machines had learned too well. They had turned on their makers, and then on everyone else. It had taken 400 years, and the combined fleets of a dozen species to stop them. The Koran no longer existed. Their homeworld was still a graveyard of broken cities. She understood the fear, but she also understood that Earth was different. "Our systems are not like the Koran machines," Elena said. "They cannot reproduce. They cannot spread. They only adapt within strict limits, and they can be shut down instantly by human command." "That is what the Koran said too," Threnve replied quietly. "Ambassador, humanity has been part of this council for 53 years. In that short time, you have advanced faster than any species we have ever recorded. You entered space using chemical rockets, and now you have ships that cross 100 light years in a week. Your medicine has doubled your lifespans. Your weapons technology grows faster than we can study it. Many members of this council believe humanity is on the same path the Koran once walked." Elena looked around the chamber. She saw doubt in many of the alien faces. She saw fear in some, and in a few, she saw something worse, quiet satisfaction, as if they had been waiting for this moment. "What is the council asking of us?" she said. Threnve raised a hand, and a hologram appeared above the chamber floor. It showed a document, glowing letters in a dozen alien languages, with the human translation at the top. "By order of the Galactic Council, under the authority of the Cognitive Weapons Accord," Threnve read, "all adaptive artificial intelligence systems used in human military and defense applications must be surrendered, disabled, or destroyed within 100 days. Human research into self-improving machine intelligence must cease immediately. Council inspectors will be granted access to all human research facilities to confirm compliance. Failure to comply will result in immediate suspension from Council trade routes, denial of Council technology sharing, and possible further sanctions." The chamber went silent. Elena felt the weight of every eye on her. "You are asking us to give up the technology that protects our colonies," she said slowly. "The technology that has saved thousands of human lives from pirates, from hostile species, from disasters in deep space. You are asking us to go back to slower, weaker systems, while other species keep whatever technology they already have." No other species has built what you have built, the Vashtar representative said. That is exactly the problem. Elena wanted to argue more, but she knew the vote had likely already happened behind closed doors, in private meetings she had never been invited to. This chamber was just a formality now, a way to announce a decision that had already been made. I will carry your message to my government, she said, her voice steady, even though her hands were shaking at her sides. But I want the council to remember something. Humanity did not ask to be part of this galaxy. We were found. We were tested. We fought wars we did not start, defended colonies that other species abandoned, and every time, we found a way to survive. We built what we built because we had no choice. If you take that away from us, you are not making the galaxy safer. You are only making humanity weaker, in a galaxy that has never been kind to us. She turned and walked out of the chamber without waiting for a response. The trip back to Earth took 6 days on the fastest diplomatic ship humanity owned. Elena spent most of it staring out at the stars, thinking about what she would say when she arrived. She thought about her grandfather, who had been a young engineer during first contact, back when humanity had first learned that it was not alone in the universe, and not even close to the strongest species in it. She thought about how much had changed since then, and how much people had sacrificed to get where they were now. When her ship finally landed at the Geneva orbital dock, she was met not by a small welcoming party, but by a full security detail, and a message that the Global Council of Earth was waiting for her in emergency session. The Global Council chamber in Geneva was much smaller than the one on Concordia Station, but it felt just as tense. Every nation on Earth had a representative there, along with military leaders, scientists, and advisors. At the head of the table sat President Amara Osei, the current chair of the Global Council, a woman who had spent 30 years in diplomacy before taking the position. Tell us everything, President Osei said, as soon as Elena sat down. Elena explained the ultimatum. She explained the reasoning, the history of the Koran, the fear that ran through the entire council about machines that could think and grow on their own. She explained the 100-day deadline and the threat of losing access to council trade routes, which supplied Earth with rare materials, medical technology, and diplomatic protection that helped keep more aggressive species away. When she finished, the room was quiet for a long moment. Then Admiral Sarah Chen, head of Earth's Combined Defense Forces, spoke. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and the kind of calm voice that came from decades of making hard decisions. If we hand over our adaptive defense systems, she said, we go back to fighting with technology that is 50 years behind what we have now. Pirates already test our borders every month. Hostile species probe our colonies looking for weakness. Without adaptive systems, we will lose ships. We will lose people. It is only a matter of time. And if we refuse, said another council member, a representative from the Pacific Alliance, we lose access to council trade routes. Our medical supply chains depend on materials we cannot produce ourselves. Our colonies depend on council protection treaties to keep the more aggressive species away. We cannot survive isolated from the rest of the galaxy. Not yet. The room erupted into arguments. Some wanted to comply fully and rebuild trust with the council. Others wanted to refuse outright and accept the risk. It was Dr. Marcus Webb, the head of Earth's Advanced Systems Research Division, who finally raised his hand and asked to speak. He was a quiet man, not used to speaking in front of large groups, but when President Osei nodded at him, the room slowly went silent. There is a third option, he said. The treaty bans adaptive artificial intelligence, self-improving code, machines that learn and change themselves. But the treaty was written 3,000 years ago, based on what happened with the Koran. It defines the danger very narrowly. It says nothing about biological systems. What do you mean? President Osei asked. Dr. Webb took a breath. For the last 5 years, my division has been researching something outside of any weapons program. It started as medical research, trying to find ways to help paralyzed patients control machines using their own nervous systems. We found something we did not expect. We found a way to grow living neural tissue that can interface directly with machinery, tissue that learns and adapts the way a human brain learns and adapts. But it is biological, not digital. It is not code. It cannot be classified as artificial intelligence under any definition the Council has ever used. The room was silent again, but this time, It was the silence of people beginning to understand something important. "You are saying we could build systems that adapt and improve," Admiral Chen said slowly, "using biology instead of software." "I am saying more than that," Dr. Webb said. "I am saying we could build ships that are part machine and part living tissue. Ships that heal themselves. Ships that adapt to combat situations the way a living creature adapts to its environment. Ships connected to their pilots on a level no computer system has ever achieved, and none of it would break a single word of the Council's treaty, because none of it would be what they are afraid of. It would be something they have never seen before." President Osei looked around the table. She saw fear on some faces, and something else on others. Hope, maybe, or ambition. "This is not a small project," she said. "This is not something we can build in secret without risk." "No," Dr. Webb agreed. "It is not small, and it will not be finished in 100 days. But if the Council pushes us toward war eventually, and history says they will, because every species in that Council has fought a war against something at some point, then we need something that can protect us, something better than what we are being forced to give up." Admiral Chen leaned forward. "What do you need to make this real?" "Time," Dr. Webb said. "Resources. And secrecy. If the Council learns what we are building before it is ready, they may see it as an even greater threat than adaptive AI. We would need to comply publicly with everything they ask, hand over our current systems, open our public facilities for inspection, look weak and cooperative on the surface, and underneath all of that, in a place they will never think to look, we build something they have never imagined." President Osei was quiet for a long time. Finally, she looked at Admiral Chen. "Can you protect a secret project of this size?" "I can build a facility that no satellite, no spy, and no inspector will ever find," Admiral Chen said. "But I need Dr. Webb's team, and I need this Council's full support. No leaks, no politics. If this gets out too early, it could start a war we are not ready to fight." President Osei looked around the table one more time. Every representative there understood what was being asked. They were not just deciding on a research project. They were deciding to defy, quietly, the most powerful organization in the galaxy, while pretending to obey. "All in favor," she said, "of Project Chrysalis." One by one, the hands went up around the table. Elena Rodriguez watched from her seat near the back of the room, and for the first time since she had left Concordia Station, she felt something other than fear. She did not know yet what Dr. Webb's team would build, or what it would cost to build it. But she knew that humanity had never been a species that simply gave up. Somewhere deep under the surface of the Earth, in a hidden facility that did not exist yet, something new was about to be born. The Council had told humanity what it could not have. Humanity had decided, quietly and carefully, to build something else instead. 99 days remained before the deadline. The public surrender of Earth's adaptive weapons had already begun to be planned, a show of cooperation and weakness for the eyes of the galaxy. But far from any Council inspector, in a place that would soon be carved deep into the rock beneath a mountain range, in a country most star maps did not even bother to label, construction had already started on something that no treaty had ever imagined, and no law had ever forbidden. The Council believed it understood the danger that humanity posed. It was about to learn that it did not understand humanity at all. The mountain was called Kestrel Ridge, a cold, windswept range in a country far from any major city. On the surface, there was nothing to see but rock, snow, and a small weather station that had supposedly been abandoned years ago. Underneath the mountain, however, 3,000 meters of solid stone separated the surface from one of the largest secret facilities humanity had ever built. Dr. Marcus Webb stood at the edge of a massive underground chamber, watching as engineers in white coats moved between rows of tanks filled with glowing blue fluid. Inside each tank, something pale and soft floated in the liquid, connected to wires and tubes that fed it nutrients and data at the same time. They called the project Chrysalis, and the things growing in those tanks were not machines. They were not quite alive either, not yet. They were something in between, something new. "Report," Dr. Webb said, walking toward a woman standing at a bank of monitors. Her name was Dr. Priya Nair, a specialist in neural biology, who had been recruited from a hospital research team 3 years earlier. "Tank 7 shows the strongest growth pattern," Priya said, pointing at a screen filled with branching lines that looked almost like a tree, or a lightning bolt frozen in place. The neural lattice inside is responding to simulated stimuli faster than any of the others. It adjusted its own structure twice this week, without any input from us. It is learning how to learn. And the others? Slower, but stable. Tank 3 had a small collapse 2 days ago, but we caught it before any damage spread. We think the growth medium needs adjusting for that batch. Dr. Webb nodded, though his mind was somewhere else. 5 years of work, and they were finally close. The idea had started small, a way to help a soldier who had lost the use of his legs control a mechanical exoskeleton using his own nerve signals instead of buttons or voice commands. That soldier could now run faster than he ever could before his injury, because the neural tissue growing in the interface between his body and the machine had learned exactly how his mind worked, adapting itself over months until man and machine moved as one. What Dr. Webb was building now was the same idea, but far larger. Instead of a small patch of tissue connecting a leg to a machine, they were growing entire neural networks that could connect directly to a starship's systems. Networks that could learn from every flight, every battle, every mistake, and grow stronger because of it. Networks that would never be classified as artificial intelligence, because they were not artificial at all. They were grown, not programmed. They were closer to a living organ than a computer chip. Admiral Chen is here, an assistant said, hurrying over. She wants an update before the council inspection team arrives at the public facility in Geneva. Dr. Webb followed the assistant to a private conference room, where Admiral Sarah Chen was already waiting, along with 2 other officers Dr. Webb did not recognize. "How close are we?" Admiral Chen asked without any greeting. "Closer than I expected," Dr. Webb admitted. "We have working neural tissue that can interface with machinery and adapt over time. What we do not have yet is a full ship. Growing a neural lattice large enough and complex enough to control something the size of a warship is an entirely different challenge than what we have done so far. We are talking about years, not months. We do not have years before the council starts asking harder questions," Admiral Chen said. "The public surrender of our old systems is going well. The council inspectors believe we are complying fully, but eventually they will want to see our new research facilities too. And Geneva cannot hide something the size of Kestrel Ridge forever. We are not trying to build a full warship yet," Dr. Webb said. "Our first goal is smaller, a single fighter craft, grown rather than built, with a pilot directly linked to its neural systems. If we can prove the concept works on a small scale, we can scale it up later, once we have more time and more resources." Admiral Chen considered this. "How long until you have a working prototype?" 6 months. "If everything goes well," Dr. Webb said. "A year if it does not." "You have 4 months," Admiral Chen said. "The council's inspection schedule for our research facilities begins in 5 months. I need something to show, even a small success, before then. Something that proves this path is worth the risk we are taking." Dr. Webb wanted to argue, but he understood the pressure Admiral Chen was under. Every day the project stayed secret was a day it could be discovered, and every day it stayed hidden was a day that Earth remained vulnerable if a real threat appeared. He nodded slowly. "We will need a test pilot," he said. "Someone willing to link their mind directly to a system we do not fully understand yet. It is not without risk." "I already have someone in mind," Admiral Chen said. Captain James Okafor had been flying combat drones for 11 years before the accident that ended his career as an active pilot. A crash during a training exercise had damaged the nerves in his spine, leaving him with reduced feeling in his legs and hands. He still worked for the Defense Forces, now as a systems trainer, teaching younger pilots the tactics that had kept him alive through 3 border conflicts. He missed flying more than he ever told anyone. When Admiral Chen called him into her office and explained, in careful and vague terms at first, that there was a new program that needed a volunteer, someone experienced, someone willing to take a serious risk for the good of Earth's defense, James did not hesitate. "I'm in," he said, before she had even finished explaining the details. "You should hear the risks first," Admiral Chen said. "I already know what it means to sit behind a desk for the rest of my life, while other people fly," James said. "Whatever the risk is, it cannot be worse than that." 3 weeks later, James stood in the underground chamber at Kestrel Ridge, looking at something he had never imagined he would see. It was shaped roughly like a fighter craft, sleek and narrow, but its surface was not smooth metal. It looked almost like skin, pale gray and slightly textured, with faint blue lines running beneath the surface like veins. It did not look like it had been built. It looked like it had grown. "We call her Seed," Dr. Priya Nair said, standing beside him. "She is not fully alive in the way a person or an animal is alive. But she is not fully a machine either. Her neural core has been developing for 4 months now, learning basic flight patterns from simulated data. What she has never done is fly with a real mind connected to her. And that mind is supposed to be mine," James said. "If you are still willing." James looked at Seed for a long moment. Something about her felt different from any craft he had ever flown. There was a presence to her, faint but real, like standing near a sleeping animal. "I'm willing," he said. The connection process took 2 hours. Thin filaments extended from a padded seat inside Seed's cockpit, filaments that Dr. Nair's team had spent months perfecting, designed to link gently with the nerve endings in James's spine and skull without causing damage. James felt a strange tingling sensation as the connection formed, and then, slowly, something else. A sense of space that was not his own body, but felt like it, stretching out around him. He could feel the shape of Seed's wings, as if they were his own arms. He could feel the air pressure outside her hull, as if it were touching his skin. "How do you feel?" Dr. Webb's voice came through a speaker. "Strange," James said, "but good. I feel her. I feel Seed." "Try moving," Dr. Webb said. Just a small thruster burst, nothing more. James thought about moving forward, the same way he might think about lifting his own arm, and Seed's thrusters fired in a smooth, gentle burst that lifted her a few meters off the ground. There was no lag, no delay between thought and motion, none of the split-second gap that existed between a normal pilot and a normal ship's controls. It felt instant. It felt natural. "That's incredible," James said, laughing despite himself. "It's like she already knows what I want before I fully decide it." "She is learning your patterns already," Dr. Nair said, watching the data streaming across her screens. "Her neural lattice is adapting to the specific way your mind sends signals. Every time you fly her, she will understand you a little better, and you will understand her a little better too." Over the following weeks, James flew Seed almost every day, first in the underground chamber, then in a sealed test area on the surface of Kestrel Ridge, disguised from satellites by a false weather system generated by hidden equipment. Each flight, Seed grew smoother, faster, more responsive. She began to react to threats in simulated combat exercises, before James had even consciously noticed them, her neural core processing the danger and beginning evasive movement a fraction of a second before his own mind caught up. It was not artificial intelligence making decisions for him. It was something closer to instinct, shared between man and ship, growing stronger with every flight. But not every test went smoothly. During one high-speed maneuver test, Seed's neural lattice experienced what Dr. Nair later called a resonance overload, a sudden surge of activity that mirrored a seizure in a human brain. James blacked out mid-flight, and only Seed's own emergency systems that had developed on their own without being explicitly programmed, managed to bring the craft down safely. James woke up in the medical wing with a severe headache and Dr. Webb standing anxiously at his bedside. "I'm fine," James said before anyone could ask. "Seed brought us down. She protected me. She should not have been capable of an independent emergency response like that," Dr. Webb said quietly, more to himself than to James. "We did not program that behavior. She developed it on her own, out of what looks almost like self-preservation, or protection of her pilot." "Is that a problem?" James asked. Dr. Webb did not answer right away. He was thinking about the cognitive weapons accord, about the Koran, about machines that grew beyond what their creators intended. But Seed was not a machine in the way the treaty meant. She was something else, something the ancient laws of the galaxy had never accounted for. "I don't know yet," he finally said, "but we are going to find out." 4 months after the project began, Admiral Chen called an emergency meeting with President Osei and the Global Council. Dr. Webb presented the results of the Seed program, including video footage of James flying maneuvers that no conventional fighter craft could match, and data showing Seed's growing intelligence and adaptability. "This is proof of concept," Dr. Webb told the council. "We can grow living, adaptive systems that operate outside the definitions in the Cognitive Weapons Accord. It works. It is safe, with proper precautions, and it is more capable than anything we gave up to the Council. President Osei studied the footage carefully. How long until we could build something larger? Something capable of defending a colony or a fleet? Years, Dr. Webb admitted. This is still an early stage, but it is proof that the path works. Then we continue, President Osei said, quietly, carefully, and we prepare for the day the Council learns what we have built, because that day will come eventually. We need to be ready for it when it does. Far above Kestrel Ridge, hidden beneath false weather patterns and buried under kilometers of solid rock, the tanks of Project Chrysalis continued to glow with soft blue light, and inside them, new shapes continued to grow, patient and quiet, waiting for the day they would be needed. The Council believed humanity had surrendered its most dangerous technology. They had no idea that something new was already breathing, deep beneath the mountain, learning to fly. 2 years passed beneath the mountain at Kestrel Ridge, and in that time, Project Chrysalis grew from a single fighter craft into something much larger. Dr. Webb's team, now numbering over 300 scientists and engineers pulled quietly from every nation on Earth, had learned how to grow neural lattices strong enough to control ships far bigger than Seed. They had learned how to grow hulls that could repair themselves after battle damage, knitting torn material back together over hours instead of requiring months in a shipyard. They had learned how to link multiple ships together into something like a shared awareness, allowing a squadron of vessels to react to danger as if they were a single mind spread across many bodies. They called this new class of ship the Kestrel Line, named after the mountain where they were born. The largest of them, still under construction, was nearly the size of a Council light cruiser, though it did not look like any cruiser the galaxy had ever seen. Its hull was smooth and organic, curved like the shell of some enormous sea creature, colored a deep gray that shifted faintly blue when its neural systems were active. Captain James Okafor, now fully recovered and promoted to lead test pilot of the program, stood in the observation deck above the construction bay, watching engineers in reinforced suits work along the surface of the newest Kestrel ship, this one named Aurora. "She's beautiful," he said quietly to Dr. Priya Nair, who stood beside him. "She's also going to need a full crew soon," Priya said. "We cannot keep testing everything with just you and a handful of volunteers. If Aurora is going to be ready in time, we need trained pilots who can link with her systems, and we need them trained fast." The urgency in her voice was not just about ambition. 2 months earlier, Vashtar raiders had attacked a human mining colony near the edge of Council space, a colony called New Manila. Without adaptive defense drones, which had been surrendered to the Council 2 years before, the colony's outdated defense systems had struggled to hold off the attack. 12 people had died before Earth's regular fleet arrived to drive the raiders away. It was the first time since the ban that human lives had been lost because Earth's defenses were weaker than they used to be. The attack had shaken the Global Council badly, and it had made Admiral Chen even more determined to push Project Chrysalis forward as quickly as possible, whatever the risk. "We're recruiting more pilots," James said, "but the neural connection process is not easy. Not everyone's mind links well with the lattice. We lost 2 candidates last month who simply could not form a stable connection, no matter how many attempts we made." "And the ones who can connect?" Priya asked. "Are becoming some of the best pilots this world has ever produced," James said, a note of pride in his voice. Below them, in the training simulators built into the lower levels of the facility, 20 new recruits worked daily to link with smaller Kestrel test craft, learning to fly with minds instead of hands. Some adapted within weeks. Others struggled for months. It became clear over time that the ability to connect with the neural lattice was not simply about skill or training. It seemed to depend on something harder to define, a kind of mental flexibility, a willingness to let go of full control and trust the growing partnership between mind and ship. One of the most promising recruits was a young woman named Lin Wei, a former commercial pilot who had left her job to volunteer for the program after hearing about the attack on New Manila, where her cousin had been one of the 12 killed. She connected with her training craft faster than almost anyone before her, forming a bond with the ship that James himself described as almost unsettling to watch. "It's like she was born to do this," James told Dr. Webb during one of their weekly briefings. "Her ship responds to her before she even finishes forming a thought." I have never seen anything like it, not even with seed. Dr. Webb nodded, though his expression remained troubled. That is impressive, but it is also something we need to watch carefully. The stronger these connections become, the less we fully understand what is happening between the pilot and the neural lattice. We are not just building smarter ships. We may be creating something closer to a new kind of partnership between human minds and living technology, and we do not yet know where the limits of that partnership are. Not everyone at Kestrel Ridge was there for noble reasons. Among the hundreds of engineers, scientists, and support staff working at the facility, one man had been quietly reporting information to an outside contact for over a year. His name was Dr. Alexander Kovic, a materials specialist who had joined the project during its second year. He had gambling debts that had grown far beyond what his salary could cover, and when a stranger had approached him during a rare trip to the surface, offering to erase those debts in exchange for information, he had said yes, without thinking too hard about the consequences. He did not know exactly who the stranger worked for. He assumed it was a rival human nation trying to steal Earth's secret research, something that would at least keep the information within the family, so to speak. He did not know that his contact was actually working, indirectly, through several layers of intermediaries, for a faction within the Galactic Council itself, one that had grown suspicious of Earth's unusually smooth compliance with the technology ban. Over many months, Kovic had passed along small pieces of information. Details about the general shape of the research, vague descriptions of the biological systems being studied, nothing specific enough to reveal the true scale of the project, mostly because Kovic himself did not have access to the full picture. But it was enough to plant a seed of suspicion. It was Admiral Chen's own security team that finally caught him, 6 months after the attack on New Manila. A routine audit of communication logs, something Chen had ordered increased after the colony attack, flagged unusual data transmissions originating from a terminal in the materials lab, sent during hours when the lab should have been empty. Kovic was arrested quietly, without any public announcement. He confessed everything during questioning, though it became clear he genuinely did not know who his final contact had been working for. The information trail went cold after passing through 3 different intermediaries, each one paid in cryptocurrency and disappearing after each transaction. How much damage has been done? President Osei asked during an emergency session with Admiral Chen and Dr. Webb. Hard to say for certain, Admiral Chen admitted. Kovic did not have access to the pilot program or to Aurora's construction. What he leaked was mostly general information about biological research into ship systems. It is possible whoever received that information dismissed it as unimportant. It is also possible they understood exactly what it meant and are now watching us more closely than ever. We need to accelerate the timeline, Dr. Webb said. If the Council suspects something, an inspection could come at any time, without warning. We need Aurora combat ready as soon as possible. And we need a plan for what happens if she is discovered before we are ready to reveal her. President Osei considered this carefully. What is your honest estimate? How long until Aurora and her crew are ready for real combat? 4 months, if nothing goes wrong, Dr. Webb said. 6, if we run into more setbacks, like the resonance overload we saw early in the program. You have 3, Admiral Chen said firmly. I would rather have an imperfect defense ready too early than a perfect one ready too late. The next 3 months were the hardest the Kestrel Ridge facility had ever experienced. Training accelerated to a punishing pace. Lin Wei and 4 other top recruits spent nearly every waking hour linked to their training craft, pushing the neural connections further than they had ever been pushed before. Aurora's construction crews worked around the clock in shifts, growing and shaping her systems faster than the original timeline had ever planned for. There were setbacks. A training accident left one recruit with permanent nerve damage after a connection failure, ending his time in the program and forcing the team to add new safety protocols that slowed training slightly, even as the deadline pressure grew. A section of Aurora's hull developed an unstable growth pattern that had to be removed and regrown entirely, costing precious weeks. Dr. Nair barely slept during this period, splitting her time between medical monitoring of the pilots and troubleshooting problems with Aurora's neural core. But slowly, painfully, progress was made. By the end of the 3rd month, Aurora's core systems were stable. Her hull was fully formed, capable of self-repair, at a rate faster than any previous Kestrel ship. Her neural lattice, linked now to a full crew of 12 pilots working in coordination, could process battlefield information and coordinate defensive responses faster than any Council warship's computer systems, all without breaking a single word of the treaty that had banned adaptive artificial intelligence, because none of it was artificial at all. James Okafor stood in Aurora's cockpit for the first time as her lead pilot, feeling the strange, expansive sense of connection that came with linking to her systems, stronger and clearer than anything he had felt with Seed 2 years earlier. "She's ready," he said quietly, more to himself than to anyone listening. "As ready as she will ever be." Outside the underground chamber, far above the mountain, the sky over Kestrel Ridge remained calm and empty, disguised by hidden weather generators that had kept the facility hidden from every satellite pass for 2 years. But in Council space, whispers of suspicion continued to grow. A faction of representatives, quietly led by members who distrusted humanity's easy compliance with the ban, had begun pushing for a surprise inspection of Earth's research facilities, one that would go beyond the usual public sites and demand access to anywhere technology research might be hidden. The vote for that inspection was scheduled to take place in less than a month. Neither side knew it yet, but time was about to run out for secrets on both sides of the growing conflict. The vote came faster than anyone at Kestrel Ridge had expected. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez received the news during a routine session at Concordia Station, delivered coldly by Thren Vey himself in front of the full Council chamber. "The Council has approved a full inspection of all human research facilities," he announced. "Public and private, declared and undeclared. A Council inspection fleet will depart for Earth within the week. You will provide full access to every location, or Earth's suspension from Council trade routes will begin immediately." Elena kept her expression steady, though inside she felt cold fear settle into her stomach. "On what grounds does the Council demand access to undeclared facilities?" "Every nation has research sites that are not related to weapons technology. On the grounds," Thren Vey said, "that the Council has received credible information suggesting humanity may be pursuing prohibited research in secret. We have given you 2 years of trust, Ambassador. That trust has apparently been misplaced." Elena did not need to ask where that information had come from. She suspected, correctly, that it traced back to whatever fragments Dr. Kovic had leaked over a year earlier, pieced together slowly, by whichever faction within the Council had been watching Earth most closely. She sent an emergency message back to Earth the moment the session ended. At Kestrel Ridge, the news arrived within hours. President Osei called an emergency meeting with Admiral Chen, Dr. Webb, and the full Global Council leadership. "A week," Admiral Chen said, reading the report on her tablet. "We have 1 week before an inspection fleet arrives, and they will not settle for a tour of our public labs this time. They are looking specifically for undeclared research sites." "Can we hide Kestrel Ridge from a full inspection?" President Osei asked. Dr. Webb shook his head slowly. "Our weather disguise system has fooled satellites for 2 years, but a determined ground search, backed by Council sensor technology, will find this facility eventually. We might delay discovery by weeks, maybe months if we are very careful, but not forever. Not if they are specifically looking for us." "Then we have a choice to make," Admiral Chen said. "We can shut the project down entirely, dismantle everything before the inspectors arrive, and hope they find nothing. Or we can accept that discovery is coming, and decide how we want that discovery to happen." "Explain," President Osei said. "If the Council finds Kestrel Ridge on their own, unannounced, during a surprise search, they will see it as proof that humanity has been lying to them for 2 years, Admiral Chen said. "That will destroy any trust we have left, and it may push the more aggressive factions within the Council toward serious sanctions, or worse. But if we control how and when this technology becomes known, if we present it as something built for Earth's legitimate self-defense, developed within a legal gray area of their own treaty, we have a much stronger position to argue from." Dr. Webb frowned. "You are suggesting we reveal Aurora and the Kestrel program ourselves, before the inspection even happens." "I am suggesting we prepare to reveal it, under our own terms, if it comes to that," Admiral Chen said. "Not necessarily before the inspection, but the moment discovery becomes unavoidable, we need to be ready to control the story, instead of reacting to theirs." President Osei sat quietly for a long moment, weighing the risk. And if the Council decides this is exactly the danger they always feared, and responds with force instead of negotiation, Then we will already have something capable of defending ourselves, Admiral Chen said quietly. Which is more than we had 2 years ago. The Global Council voted, once again, to move forward, though this time with the understanding that secrecy was running out, and that whatever happened next would happen quickly. The inspection fleet never made it to Kestrel Ridge. 6 days after the vote on Concordia Station, before the Council fleet had even completed its journey to Earth, a much larger and far more dangerous fleet appeared at the edge of human space near the colony world of Meridian, a mid-sized agricultural colony with a population of nearly 200,000 people. It was a full Vashtar raiding fleet, far larger than the small raiding parties that had attacked New Manila 2 years earlier. This was not a probe or a test. This was an invasion force, sent by a faction of Vashtar warlords who had grown bold watching humanity's weakened defenses over the past 2 years, and who saw the ongoing tension between Earth and the Council as the perfect opportunity to strike before anyone could come to humanity's aid. Meridian's defense fleet, equipped only with the older, non-adaptive systems Earth had been left with after the ban, was hopelessly outmatched. Within hours of the Vashtar fleet's arrival, 3 of Meridian's 5 defense cruisers had been destroyed, and Vashtar landing craft had begun descending toward the colony's largest cities. The distress call reached Earth within minutes, traveling through the same faster-than-light communication network the Council itself used. Admiral Chen received the report while still in the middle of finalizing evacuation contingency plans for Kestrel Ridge, in case the inspection fleet arrived early. She read the casualty projections twice before she spoke. How long until a conventional relief fleet can reach Meridian? She asked her staff. 11 days, at best speed, came the answer. The colony will likely fall long before then. Admiral Chen closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them with a decision already made. Get me Dr. Webb, now. Aurora was not fully finished. Her weapons systems, grown from the same adaptive biological technology as the rest of her hull, had only been tested in simulated combat, never in a real battle. Her crew, though well-trained, had never faced a genuine enemy fleet, but she was capable of faster-than-light travel, and unlike the conventional relief fleet, she could reach Meridian in under 2 days. It's too soon, Dr. Webb said, when Admiral Chen laid out the plan. We have not stress-tested her weapons systems in real combat conditions. If something fails during an actual battle, we could lose the ship, the crew, everything we have built for the last 2 years. If we do nothing, Admiral Chen said, 200,000 people on Meridian die, and every soul in that colony will be dead long before the Council's own investigation of us even finishes. We built Aurora to protect human lives. This is exactly the situation we built her for. Dr. Webb looked toward James Okafor, who had been listening silently from across the room. It's my choice to make, as her lead pilot, James said quietly, and my answer is yes, we go. 18 hours later, Aurora and 2 smaller Kestrel-class support ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Meridian system, arriving to a scene of chaos. Vashtar landing craft continued their descent toward the planet's surface, while the remaining human defense ships fought a losing battle against the Vashtar fleet in orbit. James felt Aurora's neural systems come alive around him as the ship registered the battle unfolding before them, information flowing into his mind faster than any instrument panel could have displayed it. He felt the positions of every Vashtar ship as clearly as if he could see them with his own eyes, felt Aurora's weapons systems ready themselves in response to his intention, before he had even fully formed the thought to fire. All ships converge on the largest Vashtar cruiser, James ordered, through the shared neural link connecting Aurora's 12 pilots. We break their formation first, then push toward the landing craft. What followed was unlike any battle the Vashtar commanders had ever faced. Aurora moved with a speed and precision that seemed almost impossible for a ship her size, her hull flexing and adapting to enemy weapons fire in ways that conventional armor never could, absorbing and redistributing impact energy across her living structure instead of simply breaking apart. Her weapons, adaptive systems grown to learn from every shot fired, adjusted their targeting with each exchange, becoming more accurate with every passing minute of combat. The Vashtar commander, a war leader named Tarek Vosh, had faced human ships before, weaker ones, slower ones, the kind that had made this raid seem like an easy opportunity. He had never seen anything like the massive gray ship now tearing through his formation. What is that thing? he demanded over his own command channel, watching as 3 of his escort ships were disabled in quick succession, their weapons systems overwhelmed by Aurora's rapidly adapting defenses. No one on his bridge had an answer. Within 4 hours, the Vashtar fleet, having lost nearly half its ships and unable to break through Aurora's defenses, retreated from the Meridian system entirely, abandoning the landing craft, still on the planet's surface, which were quickly surrounded and forced to surrender by Meridian's own ground defense forces. Meridian was saved. 200,000 lives had been protected. But the battle had not gone unnoticed. A Council monitoring station near the edge of human space had picked up sensor readings from the engagement, readings that made no sense according to any known human technology on record. The report reached Concordia Station within hours, arriving on Threnve's desk at almost the exact same moment that the delayed Council inspection fleet finally reported back that Kestrel Ridge had been located, its weather disguise finally failing under close scrutiny, though the fleet had arrived to find the facility, already largely evacuated, its most important equipment and personnel relocated in the chaos of the Meridian crisis. Threnve read both reports twice, his ancient mind processing what they meant together. Humanity had been building something in secret for 2 years, something that did not match any weapons technology on record, something capable of defeating a full Vashtar raiding fleet without apparent difficulty. He called an emergency session of the full Galactic Council within the hour. "Ambassador Rodriguez," he said, when Elena arrived, clearly having been informed of at least some of what had happened. "It appears your government has been less than honest with this council." Elena, who had received only a brief emergency message about Meridian before rushing to the chamber, chose her words carefully. "My government protected 200,000 human lives from an unprovoked invasion. If that required technology beyond what was declared to this council, I would ask that the council consider the full context before rushing to judgment." "The context," said the Vashtar representative, his voice sharp with anger over the defeat of what he considered a rogue faction of his own species, but a defeat nonetheless, "is that humanity has apparently spent 2 years secretly developing a weapon capable of defeating an entire war fleet, all while publicly pretending to comply with this council's laws." "A weapon that was used only in defense of innocent lives," Elena countered. Threnve raised a hand for silence. "The council will need to see this technology for itself, Ambassador. Not through sensor readings and speculation, but directly. We are dispatching a formal delegation to Earth, along with a significant escort fleet. Your government will explain itself, fully and completely, or the consequences will extend far beyond simple trade sanctions." Elena felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her. 2 years of careful secrecy, of public compliance and private preparation, had reached its breaking point in a single day. "I will inform my government," she said quietly, "of the council's demands." She left the chamber knowing that whatever happened next, there would be no more hiding. Aurora, and everything she represented, was about to be seen by the entire galaxy. The only question left was whether that revelation would lead to war, or to something else entirely. The council delegation fleet arrived above Earth 8 days after the battle at Meridian, a formation of nearly 30 ships, led by a Threll-heavy cruiser, carrying Threnve himself, along with representatives from every major species in the Galactic Council. It was the largest council fleet ever to visit Earth, and its arrival was watched by billions of people across the planet, broadcast live on every news channel humanity had. President Osei stood at the head of a small, welcoming delegation on a landing platform outside Geneva, flanked by Admiral Chen, Dr. Webb, and Ambassador Rodriguez, who had traveled back from Concordia Station ahead of the fleet to help prepare for this moment. Behind them, at a respectful distance, Aurora rested on her own landing pad, her massive gray form catching the morning light, quiet and still, watched by cameras from every news network on the planet. Threnve descended from his shuttle first, his slow, deliberate movements carrying the weight of 3,000 years of council law behind them. He looked at Aurora for a long moment before turning to President Osei. "You have much to explain," he said simply. "We do," President Osei agreed, "and we will hold nothing back." They gathered in a large hall, built specifically for this meeting, council representatives seated across from Earth's leadership, with live translation devices humming quietly between them. Dr. Webb presented the full history of Project Chrysalis, from its origins as medical research to its final form in Aurora and the Kestrel line of ships. He held nothing back, explaining the biological neural lattice technology in full detail, showing how it differed fundamentally from the artificial, code-based systems the Cognitive Weapons Accord had been written to prevent. This technology does not write its own code, Dr. Webb explained. It grows, the same way a human brain grows and learns from experience. It cannot copy itself across networks. It cannot spread beyond its physical body. Every neural lattice we have grown is unique, tied permanently to the ship and pilots it was grown to support. It shares almost nothing in common with the machine intelligence that destroyed the Koran 3,000 years ago, except that it can learn and adapt, which is the same quality present in every living mind in this room. The Vashtar representative, still furious over the defeat of the raiding fleet at Meridian, leaned forward with narrowed eyes. It does not matter what it is made of, what matters is what it can do. That ship destroyed half a war fleet in a single engagement. If humanity can build one ship capable of that, what stops you from building 100, 1,000? What happens when your adaptive biological weapons become more dangerous than anything the Cognitive Weapons Accord was ever meant to prevent? It was a fair question, and Dr. Webb did not try to dismiss it. Nothing stops us, technically, from building more, he admitted. Just as nothing stops any species in this council from building more of whatever weapons you already possess. But we are not asking the council to trust our restraint blindly. We are asking the council to recognize that humanity built this technology because we were left defenseless after complying fully with a treaty that other species have never been asked to give up their own advantages under. Threnvey studied Dr. Webb carefully. You believe the council's treaty was unfair to humanity specifically? I believe, President Osei said, standing to speak for herself, that humanity has spent 55 years trying to prove it belongs in this galaxy as an equal, not as a species to be watched, restricted, and feared, simply because we learn quickly and adapt to danger faster than anyone expected. We built Aurora not to threaten this council, but because we were told we could not be trusted to protect ourselves with the same tools that saved lives at Perimeter Station 7. We built her in secret because we believed, correctly it turns out, that this council would see any new technology from humanity as a threat first and a solution second. The chamber fell quiet. Even the Vashtar representative, still angry, had no immediate response. It was Elena Rodriguez who spoke next. I want to offer something to this council, she said. Not as a threat, but as an example. She nodded toward the window, where Aurora sat quietly on her landing pad outside. Ask her pilots to demonstrate what she can do, Elena said. Not against a target. Not in a display of force. Ask them to demonstrate restraint. Ask them to show this council that Aurora's crew has full control over her capabilities, and that they choose, every single time, to use that power only when human lives are directly threatened. Threnvey considered this for a long moment, then he nodded slowly. Very well. Let us see this restraint you speak of. Outside, James Okafor sat linked into Aurora's neural systems, watching through her sensors as a small group of council representatives, along with several armed guards, approached her landing pad. He felt Aurora's awareness sharpen around the newcomers, the same way it sharpened before any potential threat, but he also felt something else, a strange quality to her attention that felt almost like curiosity rather than aggression. Easy, girl, he said quietly, though he was not entirely sure if Aurora could understand him in any conventional sense, or if she simply responded to the calm intention behind his words. Whatever the mechanism, her system settled, weapons remaining fully powered, but entirely inactive, tracking nothing. At Threnvey's request, relayed through Admiral Chen, James guided Aurora through a series of demonstrations. She lifted off her landing pad and performed maneuvers that no council ship of her size could match, twisting through the air with a grace that seemed almost impossible for something built from what had originally been living tissue. She extended and retracted weapon systems on command, showing full human control at every stage. And finally, at James's direction, she opened a section of her hull to reveal her neural core, directly to a team of council scientists, allowing them to observe, though not touch, the biological systems that made her possible. She could have destroyed my shuttle the moment it landed, Threnvey observed quietly to President Osei, watching the demonstration from the observation hall. She could have destroyed my entire delegation before we ever reached this meeting. And yet she waited. She watched. She showed restraint. That restraint is not something we could have programmed into a purely artificial system with total confidence, Dr. Webb said. But it is something we can build into a partnership between human minds and adaptive biological systems, because that restraint comes from the humans linked to her, not from Aurora alone. The Cognitive Weapons Accord was written to prevent machines from making their own decisions about violence, separate from any living mind. What we have built is the opposite of that. Every decision Aurora makes passes through a human mind first, a human mind that grew up in a society that values restraint and protects the innocent. Threnve was quiet for a long time, watching Aurora settle gently back onto her landing pad outside. The Council was not wrong to fear the kind of intelligence that destroyed the Corin, he finally said. That fear kept this galaxy safer for 3,000 years. But perhaps we were wrong to assume that every path toward adaptable, learning technology leads to the same danger. What you have built is something none of us anticipated. It does not fit cleanly within our old laws, because our old laws were never written with this possibility in mind. What happens now? President Osei asked. Now, Threnve said, the Council will need new laws, ones that address technology like this specifically, rather than trying to force it into definitions written 3,000 years ago for a very different kind of danger. It will take time. There will be many voices in the Council who still see Aurora as a threat rather than a solution, and I will not pretend that fear will disappear easily. But I believe, after what I have seen today, that outright war with humanity is not the answer the Council should choose, not when there may be a path toward cooperation instead. The negotiations that followed took nearly a year to complete. Earth agreed to full transparency about the Kestrel program, allowing Council scientists limited access to study the biological principles behind the technology, in exchange for the Council formally recognizing the Kestrel line as distinct from the artificial intelligence banned under the Cognitive Weapons Accord. New treaty language was drafted, carefully defining the difference between grown, human-linked adaptive systems and independent artificial intelligence, closing the loophole Dr. Webb had originally found, while also protecting Earth's right to continue developing the technology it had built. Earth's trade access to Council routes, briefly threatened during the crisis, was fully restored, and for the first time since first contact, humanity was treated not as a promising but unpredictable newcomer to be watched carefully, but as a species that had proven, under enormous pressure, that it could be trusted with real power. 6 months after the treaty was signed, Elena Rodriguez stood once again at the podium in the Council chamber on Concordia Station, this time to deliver a very different kind of speech. 55 years ago, she said, looking around at the same circle of alien faces that had once looked at humanity with suspicion and fear, my species arrived in this galaxy small, unprepared, and completely unaware of how much danger existed among the stars. We have made mistakes since then. We have been afraid, and that fear has sometimes led us to act in ways this Council did not expect or fully understand. But we have also proven, again and again, that when the lives of others are at risk, humanity will find a way to help, even when the cost is high, even when the path forward is not clear. She paused, looking directly at Threnve, who watched her with something that might have been respect. We did not build Aurora to challenge this Council's authority, she continued. We built her because we refused to leave ourselves defenseless in a galaxy that has never been entirely safe for anyone. I hope that, going forward, this Council will see humanity not as a threat to be managed, but as a partner capable of contributing something valuable to the safety of every species here, including our own. When she finished speaking, the chamber was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, Threnve rose from his seat, and one by one, other representatives followed, until the entire chamber stood in a gesture of respect that Elena had never witnessed in all her years as ambassador. Far above Earth, in orbit near the growing shipyards where new Kestrel-class vessels continued to take shape, Aurora drifted quietly among the stars, her neural core steady and calm, connected to a crew who had learned, through 2 years of secrecy and sacrifice, exactly what it meant to protect something worth protecting. The Council had once believed that banning humanity's dangerous technology would keep the galaxy safe. Instead, they had pushed a determined species to build something far more remarkable than anyone had expected. Not a weapon built purely for destruction, but a living partnership between human minds and grown technology, born from necessity, guided by restraint, and proven, in the end, not through force, but through the choice to hold that force back when it mattered most. Humanity had not simply survived the Council's ban. It had grown into something the galaxy had never seen before, and the stars ahead, for the first time in 55 years, felt a little less uncertain.